So having opened up our pigments, I have added egg mixture straight from the bottle, water, and an egg mix glaze, which is useful for dry pigments which are lifting off the board to separate layers of paint. Don't use it too often or you'll find that your paint slides. If you ever lift up a board, I'll show you what I'm working on just now. If you lift up a board and when you get the light on it, it looks shiny, you're going to have a hard time painting that. This one, trying to get the light on it, and it's not working because although it's sunny today, the light isn't in the right direction. There's no shininess on this, so the paint's going to adhere quite nicely. What you can do, what I was taught to do, is to mix it like this. You put in a little bit of egg and then you add the pigment and you just keep adding the pigment until it starts to get lumpy. You see that takes quite a lot. There wasn't very much egg. It's starting to look a bit dry. You're looking for a texture which is kind of creamy. It's like cream. It's certainly not water and certainly not cottage cheese. Sorry for the dairy analogies. So you can see this one is slightly holding its peak. I think the problem with doing it this way is it encourages people to make really small amounts of paint, and small amounts of paint dry out more quickly. So what do I do? Well, it's tricky because I tend to work for several hours a day when I have time, and for that I use quite a bit of paint. What I do now is get a dry brush. Make sure your mixing brush is dried out because you do not want to add lots of water in. What I do now, I'm using the red because it's a relatively cheap pigment. Drop your pigment in and add your egg mix drop by drop. You can see how quickly the pigment is absorbed by the egg. Try not to be as rough as me. And you see that's too soft. That's too soft. It's just kind of, yeah, it's too watery, too thin. So I need more pigment. I put in too much egg. And you see how that's kind of grabbing the pigment and absorbing it. Okay, so we've now got to a texture which is kind of creamy. It's almost like double cream. And if I put much more in, which I'll do just to demonstrate, you see it immediately dries up. See, it's kind of gone bleh, thick, like dried up paint. Bleh. You see it's holding the brush strokes there. Too much. So in that case, a tiny dab of egg on the end of your brush. Add it and you see immediately it starts to move. In the next video we'll add the water.